Gather around, we're about to start our first panel. Thank you for coming to the Vault. It's excited to have all you guys here. First time that we're offering genetics at MJ Biz, so it's definitely a historic moment. I'm Mario Guzman, founder of Sherbinski's, VOP Genetics, creator of gelato. I'm here with some friends of mine. I wanted to introduce one by one, really some legends. You know, a lot of the genetics that you might be working with or that you smoked at some point in your life, I guarantee one of us probably had our name or our hands on that at some point. So part of what I wanted to do today was kind of go back and ask everybody, hey, like when you got into breeding, when you got into genetics, not the first time they smoked a joint, but like when they really got into the game and what that looked like and when was that time and who was involved. And I think we want to honor some of the people that aren't here with us anymore, some of the people that are still and where we're going with this now. So with that, I wanted to introduce Dawn and Aaron here from DNA Genetics. Give Dawn and Aaron a round of applause, everybody. Yeah. Welcome, guys.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I want to introduce JJ from Dawg Seeds, everybody, representing the chem and the East Coast. And over there, my boy Ken from Daddy Perp. If you guys ever smoked any Granddaddy, that's the guy you want to thank right there. He's been doing this a long time.
That's where the purple weed came from.
So I just wanted to congratulate everybody that's here right now because this is special. This is a treat. And the reason why I wanted to have these guys first is because I wanted to honor the people that have been fighting for this plant for decades, that are still fighting for this plant, and really give them their flowers while they're here, and you know, honor them really and hear their stories. So, you know, the story, everything that Ken's gone through just to get here. Ken, I really appreciate you. He had a hell of a time with flights and people taking his weed, and it's nothing new, right, Ken? Been doing this. So, Ken, I wanted to really just, you know, start with you, and if you could just share a little bit about like how you got into breeding. You know, I know you shared with me, you know, how you became disabled and how you really found your passion for the plant. So, if you could just take a minute to introduce yourself and tell everybody about yourself.
Yeah, hi everyone. So, Granddaddy Perp, yes, I know famous strain is awesome. I'm so blessed that I had that opportunity. But really my story starts when I was in a motorcycle accident at 18 years old and broke my neck. And I was paralyzed from the neck down. I became a patient that day. Not a patient of marijuana, somebody who was suffering and needed help. And they gave me pills and almost killed me. And a group of Vietnam vets in 1976, because they just came back, they said, hey, push this gurney over here, smoke this. I remember looking at smoke weed? What the hell, I'm on these pills anyway, so I smoked weed. My recovery began immediately. Because what do you need when you need to recover as a patient? Sleep and food. Marijuana helps with your appetite, it helps with sleep, and it actually helps you feel good inside. When you find the right genetics, the right strain, you are the happiest person on the planet. Because matching those two is amazing. That's what happened when I smoked some skunk. When I smoked some Panama Red back in the 70s. My mind was blown. I felt so good, so happy. I whistled while I worked. But anyway, that changed my life. So that's my story really. I started calling it medicine in 1976. I told my doctors, and they all laughed. It's a weed. Today it's a medicine. Look what happens. When we first started fighting the movement, we were all ready to go to jail because we knew this helped us. But we didn't know it would help everybody. I didn't know it would have as many medicinal properties as it did. So right now, I'm excited to be in this industry. I always have been. I wouldn't want to be in another industry. So welcome you guys all to this industry. It's your turn, time to pick up the mantle and move it forward because we still have a fight on our hands. But that's my story for cannabis. Thank you all for being here, and let's continue to share. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. We're definitely going to hear more from Ken, but a quick introduction. Next, I want to move on to JJ. JJ, if you could do the same, just kind of introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm JJ from Dawg Seeds. I first started growing in the late 90s. I made friends with some people that were growers, and they taught me everything that they had learned in the past, 5 or 10 years from growing. Back then, there really wasn't, much information other than buying a book or picking up a High Times magazine. So meeting someone that had growing experience and getting a jump start on the trials and errors of growing was a big key for me. I always sold weed, and I knew what weed sold. So the people that were growing, and I would buy their weed. So when I started growing myself, everything used to be clone only. So we'd have these clone only strains, and we used to lose them. I'd be like, oh, what happened to that Northern Lights plants? Oh, we lost it. What happened to this Kush plant? Oh, we lost it. So when I started growing, I thought, when I get a clone only strain, something that's really special, sour diesel, chem, haze, OG, whatever, I figured, I'm gonna, make a male and make some kind of seed reproduction or preservation, just for myself, in case I ever lost that strain. And then this way, I could go back and pop those seeds, and I might not find something that was 100% representative of the mother, but if I could find something that was 75, 80%, and that was a home run in my eyes. So I focused on making a male first, because we had all these clone-only female strains. So I was like, where am I going to get a male from? So at the time I was a big Sensi Seed fan. So a friend of mine went over, was planning a trip in the late 90s, and I wound up getting the Afghan 1 and NL5 Haze. And both of those strains I outcrossed, into different clone-only strains that really became the foundation of my work. And so I really wanted to make a male. The strongest stuff we had at the time was the Chem D, so I crossed the Chem D into the Afghan, back crossed it a couple times, and that became my male plant. And then I crossed that to the Chem 4, and that created the Star Dog. And at the time I was on a IC Mag, and I was just, at the time you could sell seeds on there, and you could get seed credit. So I would sell my seeds, and then I could go and I could buy some DNA stuff or some Sensi stuff or Soma, Greenhouse, all the stuff that was in Amsterdam I could just pretty much get for free. So that's how I started, just selling my seeds just to, get seed credit. So, people had bought the seeds, and then they brought some out to California. Those guys started growing it. They entered it into I think it was the 2011 San Francisco Medical Cup, and Star Dog came in second place. So that was really, the first thing that really got me started into any kind of recognition in the industry. And, I just continued to try to breed the best of the best. And really, growing up, we all grew up with strains that we, for me, growing up in New York, it was, about the haze, it was about the sour diesel, it was about the Chem Dog. So those are the things I personally like. So those are the things I kind of bred with. So, just trying to make seeds, to share with other people, to be able to let them have the same experience that I had with those strains, growing up, was really my focus. And so really I just been, blessed, that people took my seeds, grew them out, and they kind of took a life of their own. Like Star Dog, it won those awards, and then it wound up being one of the most popular strains in England, taking over the popular cheese strain. And I think it's still pretty popular to this day in England. So that wasn't something I planned on happening. It just happened on its own. So, I'm just blessed to be able to, be able to get these genetics into my hands and be able to work with them and let other people be able to have the same experience that I had in the past.
Thanks, JJ. Now, if JJ, if you could hand the mic down. Now, Don and Aaron from DNA.
Don, you go first.
Take it away, DNA.
Yeah. So I'm Don, the D from DNA. My cannabis story started as a kid, just smoking. My parents smoked weed in front of us all the time when we were kids. They were always trying to hide it from us and whatever else, but it was never something that was frowned upon as far as just around. So going into high school and whatever more normal weed type of experience. But the thing that really was profound for me was when I saw it help my mom. And JJ and others were saying, it's like when she got relief from the weed and actually was able to get through some of the things she was dealing with, it was such a profound experience for me because they were prescribing her all kinds of medicines and things like this, and in the end, what helped her, what really solved her issues was the cannabis. So as a kid or as a young, man, I realized young that weed was something that was going to be, helpful more than just smoking it. I enjoyed just smoking it, but I saw how it could help, and that's what kind of started my journey. I moved to LA after high school, went to the Cannabis Cup in 1998 for the first time. Went to Amsterdam, was like, okay, this is the Mecca. I'm gonna go to Amsterdam and see something I've never seen before. And it was amazing. The experience was great. The scene was great. It was, just a magical experience. I judged the Cup in 1998. But the thing that at the time I realized when I came back, I was like, Aaron, we got to go over there and do some shit because there's some amazing hazes, some amazing land races, some amazing things from all over the world, some hashes that we could never get in the States, Nepalese, chars, all kinds of things, Moroccan, hashes that we could never get. But the dank weed that we were smoking back in LA and back home, it wasn't the same there. It was a bit different. It was more haze. It was more sativas, citral, different things that were really popular at the time. Stonehenge, these kind of strains. So, for me at that moment, it was like, we see this lane and we should just go and fill it and kind of bring some of this magic that we have back home and try to do something. So that's kind of where I'll stop that part of the story and let Aaron pick up his whole cannabis journey.
So, born and raised in California. Weed's been around me from a young age. We actually met because of weed. He needed some herb, and I was the hustler who had the herb, so I hooked him up. And, and growing cannabis has been a part of me for a long time. And, we took a chance. We took a trip from California to Amsterdam, checked out the scene. He already had been there, judging the Cannabis Cup. We got there. I loved the vibe, going into a coffee shop, being able to smoke a joint legally, get a beer, just enjoy yourself. But the weed I had back in California was better. And that was what was lacking, I felt, in Amsterdam. And that's what also gave us a drive to come back to Amsterdam and do the dream and create DNA genetics and show the Dutchies what us Californians can do. And we grew some great weed, and it went into coffee shops. We mixed it with Dutch varieties. A lot of the building blocks of cannabis come from Holland, and building blocks that we used in our breeding projects. So to be able to be here with Sensi, you know, we know dairy, we you know, we know Barney's Farm. We've, you know, done business with them in coffee shop business. We love weed, and I guess starting DNA Genetics was really found on our love for cannabis, great genetics, good herb that we like, that we wanted the world to be able to smoke. And, you know, we didn't breed for a small area, we bred for the world. And it's a much bigger game, and Amsterdam proved to be the spot, the only spot in the world where you could open up a seed business, have a shop where you could sell seeds. It's beauty. You know, again, we just love herb. We produce it first for ourselves, and then you guys get to reap the benefits. So, thanks Mario.
No, thank you guys. Round of applause. I think that was really cool. You know, this is just kind of opened another reason why I wanted to have these guys up here first, because the history of this going back 25 years, you know, at least for DNA, you know, other than like, you know, Neville and, you know, some of the names that I know about people in the 80s, Ken, and the people that were doing it before us, you know, it was just a handful of people. And it was about them going to Europe and going to Amsterdam, and where a lot of these things were already being done by Sensi, by Barney's. And what's so special about this event for me, and why it was important for me not just to do a booth on my own or do a booth with Sensi or something, and the reason why I created this, because guys, does this remind you of maybe some of the events that we used to go to in the 90s? This was it. It was only as big as this pavilion right here, and it was your friends, and it was the people that you admired, or the people that were in the trenches that had something fire, and somebody, you know, baked brownies, and somebody had some genetics, and there was this community that's being lost. And I think it's up to us, and what Voice of the Plant is all about. You know, I founded Sherbinski's, and we had great success with that in gelato, but I've been pondering my life and just saying, like, you know, what is this really about? You know, like a lot of the gentlemen up here, when I saw my genetics and what I grew, and a lot of you breeders and growers, when that first person that comes to you and goes, I slept really good last night because of what you grew, and I haven't slept like that in a year, thank you. It's just like, holy shit. That's what we do, that's what it's about. And I think coming back to that community aspect is what Voice of the Plant is all about, what VOP is all about. Like, we are the voice of the plant. You know, if you really want to go into like spiritual shamanism type stuff, when we ingest these plants truly do speak to us. So I wanted to give you a little bit more about why we created this space, and just, you know, shout out to MJ Biz for allowing us to do this, and allowing us to speak and go back to kind of the roots of what we were doing 20 years ago. And, you know, these guys were going out to Amsterdam. Now, the guys from Amsterdam are coming to us. Can we get a round of applause for that?
Yeah.
You know, and that's full circle. That's full circle.
Full circle.
You know, and for these guys to just take a drive or a flight from LA and
Mario, we moved to Amsterdam because there was no option to have a seed company in California. The option was you go to jail, right? So for 20 years, we didn't send seeds to America. America was just off limits, even though we're from there and our hearts are there. We're living in Holland, and we're having to do that because it wasn't legal here. And now to be able to come back and see Barney, see Sensi, see our European colleagues, right, here in the States selling seeds, because we've, as a community, pushed it to this point. We made this happen, you guys. So, like, I didn't want to have to move to Holland. It's a cool story, and it was great. I had my first 2 kids in Amsterdam. Everything was great. But my wife and my 2 kids and my 3rd kid live in Cali with me, because that's where I want to live, right? That's where I want to be. That's where I want to raise my family. Amsterdam, we still have a store. Our store's been there since 2004. We had our 20-year anniversary this year, and we still have a distribution there in Holland. We got much love for Holland. I mean, that's that's where we cut our teeth, really, is in as far as business. And when you see your genetics all over the world, and you go somewhere that you don't know anybody, and you meet somebody, because you always try to find that dude that's got the weed or the plug somewhere, like it's normal, and you find your strains somewhere that you have nothing to do with, man, that full circle is something special. And
It is.
and that's all because of you guys and just doing it.
And you
Hey, Ken,
talked about,
Ken, can we hear from
really,
you?
you talked about the legal side, and we were forced out. I remember there was getting raided, and it was really bad in the late 70s, 80s, and they said, go after all the, Nancy Reagan, just say no. I remember I was going out to I went to a Long's drugstore. I was wheeling into Long's drugstore. I look up, and there's a bunch of people there. Just say no to drugs. Just say no, and in Nancy's face. And I thought, wait a minute, you're outside a drugstore saying say no to drugs. Which drugs are you talking about?
Selective drugs, right?
Yeah, selective, exactly. Not their drugs, your drugs. But so we were all forced. So when you think about we going to Holland and Amsterdam, those are all our people from Humboldt who got chased out of this country because of the laws. But they didn't give up. The cannabis has us. We love this cannabis. We know it's a healing plant. We know it's a plant in the middle of the garden that if you use it, you will gain knowledge. And the other side is afraid of that. So we're still fighting that fight, that why with this marijuana plant, which was a Jim Crow law, so we still fought it, we turned it over, and it's still chasing us down. Why marijuana? I mean, if you think about what a government does for you, it's supposed to be here to help protect you. Well, if you're protecting me with laws, why is alcohol, tobacco, pills legal and cannabis illegal? You're not protecting me with your laws. You're actually persecuting me. So actually, we still have that happening because I have people still being raided, still being arrested. When I came here yesterday, I still got hassled at the airport. I had pounds on me. It's my medicine. You can't have that. My suitcase smelled like weed. Well, it's my medicine. You can't have that. I fought with them until I finally left. I packed my van up and I drove everything down here. So we're still fighting with it,
This was just yesterday for Ken, his real life situation, guys. So
And it
we're
happens
still
when we
fighting.
travel to Europe. Happens to all of us. Still, maybe not you right now, but the more we get into it, the more we fight, the more we see the fight is still there. So keep up your fight. Let's keep getting together. Let's keep talking. This stuff is very important. And hey, I love all you guys.
Hey, Ken,
I spent my life with you guys. Thank you.
Ken, one thing was coming up for me is, when did you first start heading over to Amsterdam, and what did that look like for you? Like, where did you
In the
go?
80s.
Where did you go see? What coffee shops? Did you have a connect? How did you end up building your relationships there?
Well, I talked with, I hung out with Barney. I'm not Barney. I hung out with Ben Drockers and Alan Drockers because Ben had got raided a bunch of times, and he would tell me his stories.
Ben's the founder of Sensi Seeds, for those of you who don't know.
Yeah, so I dealt with all those guys from the beginning who told me about the raids and all they went through. And then I came back to California, and all my raids started. 3 raids by the feds, 10 raids by locals. It was on and on and on. So everything Ben Drockers told me was true. That when they come after you and there's a target on your back, they don't stop. They're very upset at us wanting to legalize cannabis. They won't explain why. I don't know if it's a religious nut thing or against drugs, except if they say they're okay. Still not sure what the anger is about marijuana. Have we not seen it help children go through certain terminal illnesses? Seniors who are now getting relief as they're older and not being forced pills down their throat that kill them. We're seeing positive things, but I deal with this criminal world and the legal world, and they don't like us for some reason.
Hey, Ken, you were telling me a story that I thought was pretty awesome the other day when we were on the phone. Could you share with everybody when you were like working with Eddie Lepp and when they tried to, or they busted you and you actually got off, and then you were telling me about how when people would get busted, what you would do and how you would help, Could you share that with them?
Correct. Well, that was kind of a crazy spell I went through. I got raided so many times. I was going to court. I was like, how come they're not putting me in jail? So wait a minute, they're more afraid of me than I am of them. I better get this right. I've got the power. So people would get raided in San Francisco, up in Humboldt. I said, you did? You got raided? Call Ken. Why? Because I'm going to go in there and say, that's my crop. And I'm going to say it to him just like that. Hey, chief of police, that's my crop. You want to charge me? They wouldn't. I must have got 10 people off this way who would swear I saved their life, which I could have, because they were looking at 10 to 20 years. And that's a rough toll.
It's real shit right there, you guys.
Damn, bro.
That's
real shit.
A lot of us fought the movement at the beginning. We all knew we were going to jail. We had tears with each other sometimes, saying, man, I hate that we have to do this. They want to lock me up, they'll lock me up. You want to do this to me, then do it to me. Here, I'm coming forward. Let's go.
You know,
That was how we fought the movement, with that kind of anger and persistence. Because you know why? Like Henry Kissinger said, I have the added advantage of this being the truth. Is this not the truth? My weed smokers, is this not medicine? Sometimes they just say, well, how do you know if it's medicine or not? Are you smoking it? Yeah, it's medicine.
I think at some point it became trivial for like, you know, who should be allowed to smoke cannabis and who shouldn't. And in the beginning, especially in medical, it was very narrow. I mean, you had to have AIDS.
No, you had to be dying, yeah.
Yeah, you had to be dying.
I was the first person that spoke at city council saying, I'm not dying, but well, we're all dying, okay? I'm not dying, but
Hey.
I'm living with a severe illness, with a severe pain, and this marijuana works. So, am I allowed to have it, or do I have to be dying? So I was the one that kind of brought that argument up to city council. But that's how fresh this stuff is. We're still teaching people this, that this plant helps us medicinally. What does that mean? You figure it out. We're figuring it out. And we're telling you it's helping us medicinally. Yeah, recreational. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, the smell. Yeah, we smoke it. Yeah, we rap. Yeah, we drink. Yeah, we do everything else too. But the cannabis by itself is not doing any is not bothering anybody. Except some people who just hate it. And haters are haters. So cannabis have a lot of them. But anyway.
Hey, JJ, if we could go back to you, bud. One of the things that when your name comes up, you know, for years, like, JJ, who's that? Oh, he's, you know, the East Coast. From the West Coast, there was only a few names that would go around on the East Coast. Your name was one of them. AJ was one of them. You know, and I'm just curious, like, when your network of friends, what cuts were kind of going around at that time? I know you mentioned a few, but could you kind of talk about, like, the chem and just sort of what was floating around with Greg and like what you first got handed, and just who were the people that were around at that time that were actually, you know, growing some real fire?
Yeah, so probably in the mid '90s, that's when the sour diesel came out, and probably a few years before that, the 91 Chem came on the New York scene, and so it was, you know, we used to call it the Chem Dog. And I remember I was in a club and I was smoking a joint, and I handed it to someone, and they said, "What is it? What is this?" And I said, "It's a Chem Dog." He starts smoking, and he's like, "Chem?" He's like, "This is grown with chemicals?" And so, you know, he got really turned off by that. And so, AJ, you know, he'd be like, "Yo, you got any of that diesel shit?" You know, and back then it was only really a catch name. So, you know, it was just kind of a street slang for something really strong. And so, you know, it was kind of the perfect name for it, because it, you know, when you smelled it, it kind of had like a gassy, diesely kind of a tip to it. And so, you know, we just started calling it the diesel, because, you know, if you called something with the chem, they were like, "Yo, this is chemicals?" So, you know, that's how the diesel moniker first came up in New York, and that was really the 91 Chem. And so, you know, people used to be like, "Yo, can I get a cutting of that? Can I get a cutting of that?" And the guy used to be like, "No, no, no." And then one day these guys found some bag seed and grew it out. And I guess, you know, eventually that became the first part of the sour diesel, because they grew those plants out, and then something hermed on that plant, and then another seed was found and grown out, and that essentially became the sour diesel. So, once that hit the scene, it just, it just kind of just took off. And
what were the packs going for when it really got? What's the highest you remember, like your shit going for out there in New York?
I mean, I was buying it from the growers for 64. So that was like straight from the source, So I was selling zips for like 500 to 600, and
damn,
The good old days.
yeah,
the good old days,
I would sell, I'd only get like 5 or 6 pounds at a time, and I'd have people come in and look at it and be like, oh, I want to take it all. And I'd be like, and I'd be like, you could take a half a pound at the most, because I got like 6 other dudes that are lined up. They're going to do me favors down the line just for hooking them up for their head stash.
Straight up.
So, one hand washes the other. So I used to have to put a limit on the amount of weed I could sell one person.
I love that story, because it's funny when I had the Granddaddy Purple when I first had it, and people couldn't get it, right? And I had it. They would offer me a pound. I'll give you a pound of OG for an ounce of your GDP.
Yeah.
All day long I did that. Okay.
And I heard, prices going up as high as like 96. That's like 800 an ounce straight up. Now, I never personally got that, but that's where some of the prices that were floating around at the time in New York. And there was just anything that really had gas. The haze was also really big in New York. The black haze, the Poudet, the Piff. It had many different street names to it. That was always so. Yes, that was pretty much NL5 haze, but it was the A haze, which was more the Colombian, which was the A5, right? It had that more pissy kind of a tip to it, and so. Yeah. But I don't think Neville ever really commercially released the A5 cross. Yeah, they do have it out there, but you couldn't buy a pack from Sensi and get it. You get the C5 haze more than likely. And it all depends on what period of time that you bought those seeds, because when Neville was working there, there was probably 2 or 3 different remakes or reincarnations of haze that, was from the Colombian, and I think the last version was the Thai. So depending on the C-mail, yes,
So what do you think about the breeding then now? Because in our days, you'd get a good strain and you bred a good strain, everyone would want it, and they would find it. They'd find ways of finding it. Today, all these breeding, all the overbreeding, all the pheno hunting there's a problem. They're doing it too fast. They're not spending time stabilizing. They're not spending time back crossing. And now I notice a lot of these strains are not as potent, I don't think, even though they say it's 32% THC. Oh, it's 36% THC. Well, it's 102% THC. So it's crazy. Where's that? So what is the marker? How do you know if your strain is really? I don't believe in the THC.
I trusted my senses.
My smoking.
You can't trust the labs, because you can give the same weed to 5 different labs and get 5 different results.
No, I smoked the machine under the table. When I'm done, that machine, it's unplugged itself.
Yeah.
Because I know I can tell weed better. When I buy weed and I sell weed, I don't just grow my own. I trap other stuff. When I smoke it and it works for me, I know it's going to work for others. And that's really how we all have done doing this for years.
And that's the thing about breeding. Like, everyone has their own personal taste of what's good to them. And so, that will factor in on what you're going to breed to a lot of times, because it's maybe a plant that you particularly like, and like Ken was saying, maybe it has certain aspects that help you medically, and so what works for you might work for somebody else, but might not work for me. And one of my most touching moments in cannabis was probably at the second Colorado Cannabis Cup by High Times, and I was at my booth, and some guy I never saw before walks up to me. He says, "I want to thank you. You saved my life." And I looked at him like, "What are you talking about? I don't even know you." He's like, "Yeah, you know, the guava plant that you made," he said, "it saved my life." I was like, "You know, what are you talking about?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm an Army vet. I have PTSD. I was thinking about committing suicide. When I started smoking the guava, it made me feel better. I started getting away from that. I started to heal. I'm on the road to recovery." And, you know, just thinking that I changed somebody or affected someone's life, you know, through something I created was probably the most touching moment I ever had in cannabis.
Those are the great stories, you know, for us being in the seed industry for 20 years now, is hearing those stories, hearing how your seed, someone bought some seeds from you, grew those seeds, kept growing the plants from those seeds, kept growing, bought himself a car, kept growing, had a wife, had a kid.
The family. I've had them same stories.
And it contributed to their whole life. You bought me a house, you guys. You don't even know. And like, those are the great stories. And being able to help all. I mean, because when these seeds go to someone, they're helping somebody. Whether it's helping them put money in their pocket or helping them medically, it's helping them. You know.
That's the best part of our story.
Yeah.
Because I've had so many people tell me how I've helped them and I don't even know them. Wow, that's what Mary Jane did for me. Have people thanking me for saving their life. It was the weed. But yes, I did help.
The silver lining is we got to make money too.
And then they make money. And so, I mean, it's been a wonderful thing. And I tell you what, I was kind of torn when I was fighting the movement because up north, all these little cities were saved by cannabis. All the little cities up north, they were all thrived over cannabis.
You know what I love about this conversation, you guys, is like, I think this is the best. This is the best part of this space. This is the heartbeat of this space. If you look at this whole building, all the air conditioners and consultants and all the shit that you can go buy, what's at the heart and the nucleus of everything in this convention? Us, the seed, the genetics. It's what makes it all go around. And all the shit that we go through, from cops to the government and all the things that there's only one thing that could make us fight through all the shit. And there's been plenty of times, I'm sure all of us were like, fuck this, I gotta go find something. And somehow we woke up the next day and said, fuck, I can't do anything else in this. And we're still here.
Said, fuck this, I'm moving to Europe, bro. I ain't going to jail.
But helping people though is that thread.
Stayed in weed.
You know,
stayed in weed though. Definitely.
That's what I love about seeds too, though. Is like you can go around the world. You know, just to speak to what Aaron was saying, is like you go to Spain and then someone comes up at a show and he has a bud of something he grew in his garage and it's your genetics and he's talking about how it helps him so much and it's fire. You know, there's nothing like that. There's nothing like that. I mean, I think all of us. My goal when I first started growing, I was like, wow, this weed's really good. And when it started to get notoriety, I was like, I just want to share this with the world. I just want to, like, everybody should have this. If somebody, because at the time, California, when I started in the Bay Area, we were the only ones that had dispensaries. There was no other dispensaries. I remember going down to LA and
you had to go to Inglewood.
Yellow House or Inglewood?
Yellow House or Inglewood.
And I remember taking gelato down to LA and they're like, fuck, we don't want this shit. Where's the kush? And I was like, this is the fire. First cookies, no one wanted cookies. And then that fucking went off and then no one wanted gelato and that went off. And here we all full circle, boys. But
And now, now they all want it.
Yeah, but I want to ask you guys, Dawn and Aaron, like for you, what was the first genetic that you made that really kind of put you on the map? Like what were the first, what was your baby in your mind? Like what's at the center of kind of DNA's like roots?
In the very beginning, I would say our baby was LA Confidential, because this was a cut that was going around LA, or it wasn't a cut, it was weed that was going around LA at the time. You could get OG and then you could get Affy. And the Affy was like you were saying, you couldn't buy a pound of it. You couldn't, even if you knew the grower, he was your boy. If you were in tight and you were family, you got a couple ounces. You got a QP maybe, right? You're lucky to get the QP. And so when we moved to Holland and we were starting to do our stuff, came back home, and a really good friend of ours gifted us the Affy cut and was like, yo, take this shit to Europe and blow it up. Let's fucking put LA on the map. And so we're like, okay, well, let's name it. And right then and there, we're like, well, it's LA Confidential, let's go. And so, we brought that to Holland. We entered it in the cup. It was our first cup we ever entered, 2004, 2003. 2004, like, fuck, man, a lot of time, a long time ago, 20 years over ago. And, we won third place. And we were amongst giants, right? Sensi was there, Greenhouse was there, Barney's was there.
No advertising,
yeah, not $1 of advertising, not $1 of, like, buy a ad in High Times, an ad for what? Like, there's nothing, so let's just go and try to just let our weed speak for itself, And that was, for me, that was the most profound, because that put us on the map. It was like, holy shit, we just won a cup. Like, it's over. Like, mic drop, it's over. It's on. We're doing this the rest of our life. It's on.
I love that.
Yeah, I took that LA Confidential. I crossed it with Granddaddy Perp and came up with Candyland. That won cups for the next 2 years. So Candyland's got the, so, these genetics, they all connect.
Yeah.
We don't even know, because we don't get to tell the stories enough. The more we get together like this, the more we watch how connected we really are.
You know what,
My brothers.
You know what I think of when you say that is, if you, for all the breeders, for all the growers, look, the reality is, people, I think the word create is kind of thrown out there wildly. Like, none of us created this. We're all, borrowing genetics that are kind of passing through the world. They're going to be around a lot longer than we are. And, I always try to remind myself or tell myself that we're stewards of this plant. And, I'm sitting there looking at all these men up here, and literally, the last 20, 30, 40 years, we've spent however many more decades we dedicate our lives. But then there's the new generation, a lot of the people here. That's why I invited, Oakland Seed Company. I invited some of the other companies that maybe they don't have as much experience, but they're putting in the work, they're on their way, and we're gonna have to eventually pass the torch to the next generation of breeders. And the reason why I think it's so important is that I know that there's gonna be one or two people that attend this and listen to this, or whether it's online or you guys view this on YouTube, or somebody's gonna hear this and it's gonna inspire them, and it's gonna push them to put decades and decades of work and fight against the man and fight against the government and fight against all the people that are trying to say, no, that medicine's bad. And so that's why I think this is so important. That's why I love to hear from these guys, because, it's going to be somebody else that's going to be up here in 20, 30 years talking about listening to Ken Estes and listening to Sherbinski and Dana and JJ and how they were inspired. And that's really what I think we all hope to do.
I'm rolling up here then too, bro.
What's
20
that?
years from now.
Hey, listen, as long as we're smoking that good, I think we'll have a lot more gray hair and less hair on top, but, we'll still be doing it. Anyways, guys, I want to give everybody a chance to get back and get to their booths. I think really appreciate the conversation. We're gonna have the next discussion at 1:30 with abstracts. So I just want to give everybody, if you could give everybody up here a round of applause for speaking. I really appreciate you guys.
Thank you all.
Does anybody have any questions or anything? We have a little extra time. Does anybody want to ask any of the breeders any questions? Yeah, we know we still love you, bro. Thanks, guys.
I'll say this. Just like you said, you use LA Confidential. We use Star Dog Guava to create kosher dog.
No, I'm telling you, I look at I know that we all don't even know it, how connected we are, that we've been using each other's genetics. That you think there's a million strains, maybe there are, a million bad strains, but the good ones, they're out there. And we've been crossing these good strains with each other. And you said 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, and 100 years from now, there's gonna be people crossing it that's gonna come up with skunk. Listen, smell that, it smells like skunk. Whoever decided, I want to come up with a medicine that smells like skunk? Nobody. But that was the terp that happened. And when you smoked that skunk in those days, that's the best weed I've had. My Granddaddy Purp I called number 2. That skunk was number 1. I couldn't get enough of it. First pound I bought was $100. I went back a month later, the next pound was $500. That was the one weed that just started blowing up.
That was the dank skunk, the Afghani.
Oh, the skunk in, yeah, the
Yeah,
70,
well now they bred
77.
it. They bred. You can thank Sam the Skunk Man,
Sam the
and
Skunk
Robert
Man,
Connell
hallelujah.
Clark, and a couple others that don't like the dank and they like the fruity, floral type of flower.
Well, I like that too, as long as it kicks my ass.
Yeah, but that's why like skunk has kind of changed,
Oh, it is. It's totally different. No,
yeah.
it's been gone through 3, 4 different. I mean, my favorite. Say you asked earlier, what's the favorite weed you bred? Now, Granddaddy Purp was given to me by the Indians, and as a thank you for saving somebody's house. And it was just one of those things where I did a good turn, and they did a good turn to me. And they gave me, but they called it purple medicine. I said, I don't like that name. I'm gonna call it this is like the granddaddy. It's like the granddaddy of all. The Granddaddy Purp. I called my friends all night long as I was driving down to the Bay Area from Humboldt. 20 calls back in the old days when we had voice machines. And I'd say, hello. No one answered because it was 2 in the morning. Yeah, hey, Granddaddy Purp, game over, click. I'd call my next friend. Hey, game over. Granddaddy Purp, game over, click. So everyone had these recordings from me the next day. How come you said that? Then I show them the Granddaddy Purp. It was a name that blew that up.
What did they originally call it, Ken?
Purple medicine. Which reminds me of Urkel. Urkel wasn't Urkel. Urkel was lavender. For 1 year, the guys who had Urkels sold it as lavender up in Humboldt. And we're all like, that's a
That was
horrible
a
name.
slow ass little plant too that didn't want to grow.
That was.
Clone. I mean, like some of the greater strains have issues.
No, all the bomb females I've ever brought up are the scrawny plants. Right? The bomb females are the little yielders.
Yeah,
And
some of them, yeah.
Most of them. You have to cross them into bigger buds to try to get that. That's why Urkel and Big Bud was such a wonderful cross.
Right. Some strains you just be like, I love the taste of this strain, but it doesn't grow for shit, and you want to
Structure,
put it
yield.
on. Yeah, that's why certain people use certain varieties in breeding projects. White Widow, very bland, of a strain, but really produces, and they can use it because it reverses very well and put it on different other strains, and the other strains pretty much stay consistent with what the other plant.
One thing I've learned is that I think a plant only has so much energy to give, and so some will focus on growth, some on terps, some on THC, and so to try to get everything that clicks all the boxes is really really rare thing to find. So most of the ones that have the most potent are the smaller, slower strains. Smaller, and they just don't produce much, and then just and some of the bigger strains and faster strains seem to have more CBD or more hemp-like characteristics to them, and will have a little bit less THC. But it all depending on the region it comes from, and genetics is just such a hard thing to try to figure out. But when you cross two things together, what you're really looking for is hybrid vigor, meaning that you're going to find a plant that you find out of your seeds, which is going to be better than both of the parents, and that is your main goal in breeding, is trying to do that, trying to find something new, bring out something that is locked in the genetics from the past.
Selection.
Yes, and it all comes down to selection.
Selection. That's what we do for you.
It's crazy because a lot of times you go into a breeding project, I'm sure you guys have the same experience. You think that, okay, I know this about the female or the mother, and I know you have a vision. You think, okay, we can get something out of it, and then something completely else happens, completely different, or what you were searching for isn't what you end up selecting in the end, because something from the deep past comes out and you found that, and now you're on a complete different choose your own adventure, and it's actually it's addictive as hell, and it's like a curse because you can never get through it all.
You'll never get it.
You'll never end,
because
bro.
it's always another round. It's like a fight that never ends. It's another round. So what do I come up with this round?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hold on.
Jerry. Thank you. Do you guys think that the focus on THC, like value, like percentage, concentration, is messing up the
Yes, I
reading
do.
and the
Definitely.
I think it's a complete lie. And the people who test stuff at test markets are lying for these people. Because no way do I smoke a strain that says it's 30-something%, and I'm not even as high as the stuff that I'm smoking that I know is 17%. Sometimes I go to Grande Perp and I only get 22%. But it kicks my ass. I'm coughing. I can't get my breath. And then I smoke this other stuff that nothing.
But there's something
They're
else
ruining
that's
our
happening.
breeds, our strains.
Yeah, it's not only THC, and I think you're 100% right. It's definitely a problem in the industry where, there needs to be a re-education or an education of the people, because people equate THC content to value. I understand, right? They're paying all these taxes, they're buying legal weed. I get it. They want to think that they're getting the best value, so they think that they need the highest THC. And then you have the testing companies that you can't really trust the numbers. So you get this uneducated person, akin to walking into a bar with a bunch of your friends and going to the bartender and saying, "What's the strongest alcohol you have? I want that." And he would look at you and he would look at you and laugh. Like, nobody does that, right? And that's what everybody's doing when they walk in the dispensary. Nobody's thinking about terpenes. Nobody's thinking about the psychoactive effect that's happening that isn't measured. Yeah, flavonoids, exactly.
Terpenes, and there's also a lot of other things that we probably don't even
We're not even measuring, right?
Exactly, that comes into play.
Exactly.
It's got to be the total package, really.
And every person is different, right? Like, everybody's body chemistry is different. So to say that one person is going to get the effect that the other person is going to get based on a THC content or some sort of, it's arbitrary at that point. It's personal. And so, yeah.
And then, you got, a sativa and an indica, where an indica is going to be more narcotic-like, couch-like, and where a sativa is going to be more of an up-high, uplifting, more energetic. So, there's a lot of different things that I think factor into the total effect.
Yeah, you get so many of these different variables that you don't want. So to isolate variables and to propagate them more, so the traits that you want, right? You have to find the traits that you want and keep focusing and isolating those. A lot of people don't. They just want to make seeds because they want to sell seeds for the next round of seeds. I get seeds sometimes, right? I pop them up. I'm going to try them out. Maybe some guava. Maybe it's some good stuff that someone told me about. So by the time I get them up, 6 months later, I finally got them going. And now there's new strains, and now they want you to grow these other strains that they're saying are even better. And now people want that one.
Now this shit way better than that other shit.
Yeah, and I got that story from them 3 times in a row in the last 2 years. So it's like, oh, you can't keep up with it sometimes.
Hey, tomorrow at 2.
Well, that's why you got to keep a focus on what you like. You can't really go by. You can't go by what the market wants. Some of your personal taste will come into play, but if you just stay true to your thinking, all of that comes back around. Where gas is out today, it's going to be back in tomorrow. So you just got to stand firm in what you believe in and what you personally like.
But you breed for yourself, right?
I just wanted to say before, tomorrow at 2 o'clock, we have a panel just about, it's called Potency for Profit. It's to address that exact problem. So if anybody wants to know a little bit more about tomorrow at 2 o'clock.
And as far as the breeding goes, right, like it's like a lot like music, right? If you had to get a metaphor that kind of matches up, when a musician is making music, I'm not a musician, I make seeds, but I understand it's their art, right? And what they do with it when they're done with it, they don't care what anybody thinks. They don't care if anybody else likes it. They don't, if they're authentic. They don't care if it resonates with anyone. It resonates with them. It was a special moment in time for them, and they locked it in, and that's the product. Well, it's very similar with breeding. Once we get to the point where we've spent 2 years on a breeding project and we finally got to the end and we're like, this is what we want, I can care less if everyone else likes it, because we've just reached this place with the genetics that we finished that album, right? And we feel good about it, and then you put it out. And then when it resonates with other people, then that just feels better, right? Because you're putting out a product first for yourself, and then when it resonates with everyone else, that's special. That's where we can get really fulfilled.
Yeah, I think we are artists, and I think that's the way you have to look at it, because we create things. And we have visions. And sometimes other people don't see the vision until we finish with our vision. And then we show them the pot and they go, wow. Yeah. And we foresaw that 2 years ago. So I like being the artist side.
Totally. And we're like, you don't want to be an artist, right? Like when people started making hash 10 years ago, they were calling themselves extract artists, and I always thought that was pretty funny. Like, art is a moment in time captured that can't be remade, and we do something like that, but I don't look at it as us as the artists. It's more of, it's just what we want to do, and metaphorically speaking, that connects to it, right?
Yeah.
But at the
artists are creative people, and I think there are people more artistic than they realize.
Totally.
Or the creator.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, in a way too, I like to compare it to almost dog breeding, because you could take two dogs and breed them together, and you'll get a mutt, and it's the same thing with seeds in a way where you could just put two plants together and you're gonna get seeds, but if you don't have a vision on what you or a goal on what you're trying to do, you're just going to wind up with mutt seeds. So you really got to try to pick something that has characteristics that you're trying to pass on, to the seeds, and make something that's new and special.
That made me think of something like when I was playing around, and to me it was always just a hobby. And it's even how gelato got made. It was me messing around. Whoa, there's some seeds. Oh, let me pop these. Oh, I accidentally let this pollinate this room. Oh, see what those, and then next thing you know, you're finding heat and all this. But when I was first started doing feminizing, and we're putting on different genetics, like the cookies and the sherbet, for example, that was the first time that I realized that you could take the same pollen and put it on two plants, and one plant not give you a single fucking seed, and the other one's packed full of seeds. No, it was cookies. When we reversed sherbet, we put it on cookies and we put it on sherbet. The sherbet to sherbet was like nothing. Like I couldn't get any seeds, but the sherbet to cookies produced. So depending on who you went to, some of it it just doesn't receive, or there's just some plants that you could have it right next to the plant that's got 1,000 seeds, and you only get 4 or 5 seeds out of this one. So that was another thing that I experienced. Yeah, right. Exactly.
The important part of breeding is really, you guys know this, a lot of people don't, males. You got to spend time finding the right male. That is really your gold mine. Because I got 100 people with a bomb female because they've been crossing for years. But if I bring a bomb male, now, hey, what's a bomb male? If you grow males up, you can find the biggest, fastest growing one. That's what everyone chooses. But the truth is, if you flower the male out to the very end, you can see traits at the end of this that will show crystallization on a male. You could actually see the density of the buds. You could see traits that you want in the female. So if you go the male to the very end and you choose a bomb male, that's just like choosing a bomb female. That means you're going to have a good cross no matter what you have, unless it's a horrible male. But if you got a bomb female and you find a bomb male, I'm telling you, I've crossed for years. They always work. That always is a winner. But finding a good male,
and to speak,
it's patience.
To speak to what JJ was saying earlier too, if you got a heater cut and you don't have, it's really important, what male am I going to choose? You know, so I have some seed stock to actually breed with. Yeah.
If the male even works.
Yeah.
If the male even works, because like, if you have a male that works, then you keep that male around. But selecting a male isn't the easiest thing either. You know, there's ways to reverse a male, to see what its qualities are as a female. You know, some males will produce some resin on them. You know, some will have more of a flavor and smell. That's all down to selection. You're even selecting the male plant.
Yeah.
You know, just like you're selecting the female plant that
You
you
know
want.
what also is interesting is like I find the plants to be genetically a lot like humans too. Like you could have two healthy plants, that doesn't mean that it's going to produce a baby, essentially, you know. And there's a lot of genetic variances in what plants are going to mix with each other as well. You know?
Absolutely. Like, you know, we could take two great strains and you put them together, and what comes out of those seeds is garbage, and you know.
Just like JJ was saying, it's not better than the parent, or it's too close to one of the parents, are just not as good.
Right. Maybe the plants look super pretty, but you know, at least Don and I aren't going to select just because a plant is pretty. It's got to have some nose. It's got to have some
flavor,
some wow factor to it to get selected. You know, not just because I've grown some of these hyped things, and like some of them might not even be clones that are out there aren't so special in my eyes. Like they got selected because they're pretty and they have some color.
One thing funny about males is how many clone-only males are out there. There was like the A haze, the C haze, the Soma G13. But so, you know,
the males that we held on to.
Right, but in the world of cannabis, like there's tons of female clones out there, but there are very few male clones out there.
Well, nobody would even keep a male, right?
Right.
Everybody was just killing them. So to keep a male, you had to be fucking weird.
Right,
bro.
and
Keep a male.
right.
Males will hermaphrodite.
Right.
Also
Totally.
quickly. It's hard to keep a male around.
But you know, one of the things with the males is, you know, like he was saying, is it's all about the selection. And like for me, you know, depending on what strain it is, you know, you want to look for a male that, if it's the same strain or, you know, that's similar to the female, or it could be something that's totally different, opposite of the female. But when I'm choosing a male, you know, I'll rub the stems and see what kind of smell I get from the stems. Sometimes when you rub the stems too, you can feel the stickiness of the stem and how stickiness of, you know, trichomes will be, you know, growing off of the stem early on. And when I also like to choose a male that's shorter and also that's later flowering, because more your hemp varieties are faster flowering, taller, stretchier males.
You just said Soma's G13 haze male. It reminds me of Martian Mean Green, because we used that male for a minute, and keeping that was special for sure.
And the thing about a male is you don't know what it's going to produce until those seeds that were made are grown out. So you might have something amazing, and you won't know it until those seeds are grown out. And by that time, that male could be dead.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a matter of trying, you know, and space has a lot to do with it. You know, a lot of people don't have a lot of space to hold a lot of plants. So holding a male is kind of a pain in the ass.
That was the whole reason for the community, you know, going to feminized seeds. We never would even make feminized seeds in the beginning. For the first 5 years of DNA, we didn't even put out feminized seeds. And then it was finally, if you don't, you won't have a company anymore, because it was 95%
Right, the
femmes.
European market, yeah.
Right, European market, right. If you're trying to global market, yeah.
It's more than 95. The global market is more than 95% feminized seeds. Some of the biggest growers in the world are in different countries, you know, that are growing, you know, are buying millions of seeds, and they don't want regular seeds. They don't want males. There's plenty of pollen flying around. out there in some of these countries. And you know, for a market, if you're asking like us specifically, you know, we're European and we're American company. It's, yeah, I would say 98% of our sales are feminized seeds.
We still have regulars.
We still have regulars. We got regulars at the booth right now.
Yeah, I think regulars should be like breeder packs. You got regulars, you should breeder pack. If you're not doing that, you're growing for flower. You need every square inch of your room, so do feminized.
Right, but the majority of the people never seen a male before. Right?
Yeah, I know.
You know, in Holland, a lot of the growers, commercial growers, never saw a male before. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
they
yeah.
just got a clone, right? And if they just grew from clone over and over, clone.
Correct. The last 20 years, that's been it. But years ago, we had to get seeds. In fact, that's how come I made my seeds every year. I would make it on lower branches by putting a bag over it with pollen in it, and I get branches full of seeds so I can carry my genetics on the next year.
Yeah.
We didn't have mothers or clones. That was kind
No,
of.
that's where it all started,
I
from
learned that,
seed.
yeah.
It all starts from seed.
Correct.
In a lot of the outdoor farms that were growing outdoors, they couldn't keep clones, so they had to make seed for the next season. Otherwise, they wouldn't have anything to grow with, because, you know, once they shut down for the season, it wasn't like they had a heated greenhouse to keep their clones alive. You know, they had to, you know, wait out the winter and then start new seed stock in the spring.
They're making hash in the wintertime from all their product that they grew, you know, and even like I said, even in Morocco, the places that everybody's still getting seeds in their weed, right? No matter if you grow from feminized seed, regular seed, doesn't matter. There's so much pollen flying through the air that it's impossible. You know, maybe in the very near future, it's, you know, technology comes a long way, and, you know, maybe these farmers
grow on Mars.
No, maybe
before anyone else
some
gets
plants
there.
won't be able to get pollinated.
Right, but some of the crime in that is like some of the indigenous, you know, strains that were there, land-raised strains, have now been contaminated, and now the hash production isn't the same.
Yeah, they were contaminated when skunk came out. That's you know, when skunk came out, and when skunk came out in seed form, that's like some of the first seeds that were put around globally, right?
Yes.
And they were introduced to Moroccan, Iranian genetics, South African genetics, South American genetics. Like pure land-raised varieties are far and few now, you know. And when we say sativas and indicas, like, what does that mean? You know, thin leaf, broadleaf, is it really you know, are we just putting a name on it for how we feel, for how you feel and the way it grows, a characteristic? But I mean,
Most
like,
are hybrids.
everything's now is a hybrid. You know, we have some pure indicas, you know, some Afghanis that are still around. You still have Sensi seeds that hold some sativas, some good pure sativas, you know, in their libraries. You know, like, but a pure, I mean, I wouldn't even call it sativa now, but that's education to the people that needs to be re-education.
Yeah. It's hard to say pure anything right now.
Yeah, it's like regional, right? It more means the region or the part of the world it was grown based on conditions, I think, more than anything. Characteristics. Thin or broad, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, thin or broadleaf, let's just call it thin leaf or broadleaf cannabis. You know, I mean,
Instead of indica or sativa?
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
one's going to grow a little taller, one's going to grow a little bit shorter, one's going to have more of a hammer effect, one's going to have more of an uplifting effect. But those are characteristics. It's not, you know, it's
Correct. We do have to fix this naming thing, because it gets kind of crazy. I look at some packs of seeds that say this cross with this, cross with this, cross with this, cross with this. I said, you covered every single strain.
I think now it's important, especially with all the dispensaries and the bud tenders, when somebody comes in and says, hey, we're the sativas, or I want a sativa, we all kind of know what that really means. It's like, hey, I'm afraid to get really baked, you know, or I like people that like Adderall, or it's the way their body, it's something that works well for them. That sativa, it doesn't make them race like some people, like they'd have coffee. It actually does the opposite. It actually calms them down. So whenever anybody's asking me about sativas or indicas, I always talk about the effects. You know, like, oh, you want a sativa? Well, this is a sativa leaning effects, because too many people, or if you look at a percentage, right, 70% indica, 30% sativa, like what the fuck? Like everything is made up, it's all bullshit. So I think more importantly, you could even be working with indicas, and you could have a certain selection that it's fucking 100% feels like you're smoking sativa. Racy, gives you that feeling, makes your heart beat really fast.
Percentages though. On their, I mean, like, I'm like, people want, like, if we took off our percentages on our packs, we're gonna get asked those questions again, right? Because you got to re-educate the people.
Not THC percentage.
Not THC, the indica sativa percentage, you know.
It's your own experience.
It's your experience, you know, like.
Is it on the genetics or the feeling?
Well, I mean, you say this is more thin-leafed plant. This is and the results are this, and then you know, and we feel like when we smoke it, it's not so uplifting that it's a sativa, or it's not so hammer effect that it's a pure indica.
Or how it grows, and you know, it's your experience with the plant gets us to those percentages, right? It's not like you put it through some HPLC and it comes back, 32%.
But that makes sense, because your experience is the effects. It's like how you feel, how do you experience growing it, and you're able to say, I know what you mean by sativa, so it's 30% this, right? Based on what you should expect.
And people, the customer, if they get a good result from your packs, then they trust what you're saying, right? And at the end of the day, it's just about building trust and just about being honest, right? Like, honestly, I feel this is a 70-30 indica dominant hybrid. Does it mean it's a 70% indica? I don't know, but I know that the parents were this and this, and I know based on the way it grows and the base blah, 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 that, in my opinion, how I feel and how Aaron feels, this gets us to these results.
That makes sense.
So, but you could take a pure haze and cross it to a pure indica, and what do you think the
Offspring?
The offspring is going to be more
It's
more haze dominant. So it wouldn't, even though it's a 50-50 split, genetically the haze is more dominant, and I would say it's probably an 80-20 split if you did a half-half.
right, and like
thing.
we've taken like the AFI, LA Confidential, which is indica, right? There's no sativa in it. It's short, it's fat, and cross that into other things, and it's super dominant in those things. So you would say it's more indica leaning, right? If that's
It's your experience with those plants in the end. So like that's the sativa you're talking about, you get that result from it, so then that's
Right. But I think in certain crosses, certain strains are going to be more dominant than others.
Well, there's a lot of dominant and recessive traits, right? And you don't know it until you start breeding with the plant.
Right.
Because sometimes the first breeding, I lose the terps. So where does terps go? Well, that must have been a recessive one. And then I try breeding more into it to see if I can find that terp again. And it might come back to me, maybe a tangy terp that's light now, but it's not the same that I got that one time. So there's different levels of not intensity, but the sativas are I don't want to say sativa indica. Because I can tell, like you guys, that when I smoke something, I've been doing it for so many years, I can kind of tell the trip when I'm on, is it a high that's sativa-like, or is it a high that's indica-like? Does it have some sativa traits and some indica traits? But I've been smoking so many years, and I know how to examine it like that.
Well, I guess it all depends on how it affects everyone individually.
Totally. And I mean, I understand what you're saying as far as like brown eyes are more dominant than blue eyes, right? So a couple that has a brown-eyed woman and a blue-eyed man most likely will have brown-eyed kids, right? Like it's 70% is the way it is. But I have 3 kids. My wife has brown eyes, and all 3 of them have blue eyes, right? And I have blue eyes. So it's not always like that, always, right? So it's all about
right, and that's the complexity of genetics.
There you go. You got to grow them out. You got to grow them out.
Hey guys, thank you for giving me that extra half hour, guys. I was saying, these guys are like the uncles at the Thanksgiving in the backyard drinking beers, shooting the shit for 6 hours straight.
Smoking weed.
Hey, I want to thank Ken and JJ and Don and Aaron from DNA. Everybody, give them a round of applause. Thanks a lot, guys.
Hey, what's the chance there's going to be more A5 around?
He said, what's the chance that there's going to be more A5 around?
There could be some in the future popping up.
There's some guy I heard there's a story about him. Might have some, right?
Thanks, guys. Hey, at 1 o'clock in 10 minutes, 10 minutes, we got the Science of Dank presented by Abstracts coming up in 10 minutes. Thanks, guys.